Hello and welcome to Stripe Dialogues. Today we are going to discuss something which is not really related to international relations or current affairs. It has got something to do with nation building and defense preparedness or operational preparedness. And to discuss this with us, we have today Brigadier R.K. Bhatia, who will be talking to us on the space-based systems. Basically, space as the new high ground of warfare is what I call it. Essentially, warfare has gone through various stages. First generation was, the yesteryears, BC, 2000 BC time of warfare, 2000 years back. And then we've gone to second generation, third generation, fourth generation, fifth generation, sixth generation. And now we are really stepping into the seventh generation where the dimensions of warfare have changed. It is no more restricted to land, air, or sea. The warfare has gone to the aerospace, and now it actually transcended to space warfare. And then you have the digital world, what we call it as cyber, and in that it has gone down to artificial intelligence, robotics. The use of manpower is getting lesser and lesser. More of technology has gone into the entire warfare, but surprisingly, जैसा कि whatever happened in the past, each of these technologies are dual purpose. Most of them get invented for peace and progress and economic growth, but ultimately they find a way to be used in the warfare. And this is exactly what is happening to space-based systems. Over to you, Brigadier Bhatia. Welcome to the show. Now you as the guest and I am the host. Take over. The field is yours.
Thank you, sir, and good evening, viewers. Today, like Jan Dushant mentioned, I will give you a brief about space war. Why we doing this program is that we have another program lined up in the near future where we are going to invite an expert on aerospace, and we'll carry out a comparison of the space war capabilities of India vis-a-vis China. So, when we talk about space warfare, so the first time we realized that what exactly is the space warfare was during the Gulf War. So that is how, if you see, आज की डेट में दुनिया में all countries have satellites in the orbit. The leading being USA, which has 4,511, followed by China, United Kingdom, Russia, and India has 62 satellites. Now, all these satellites are in the orbit for different purposes. 4,823 satellites out of 11,330 satellites are purely for communication purposes. Interestingly, if you make a comparison with effect from January 22, there has been an increase of 53.86% in the number of communication satellites since January 22, followed by Earth observation, technical demonstration, navigation, space observation, Earth science, and others. And unlike the yesteryears, the ownership of these satellites, 5,280 satellites are owned by the commercial ventures, followed by government, which is 688, and then military uses, 588, and then civil uses. As we progress, I will give you the details of what is the military usage and what is the civil usage of these satellites. Coming on to what exactly is the space war. Any war, it is always the endeavor of the warring groups to go and gain the highest possible ground. If they are on a high ground, their observation is better. They can see the activities of enemy and accordingly react. Desert Storm, as I had mentioned, is called the first space war. It was during desert storm, that positioning, weather, communication, imagery, missile warning, the world actually saw that what can satellites do for during operations. This was followed by Iraqi freedom and operations in Afghanistan, where the US demonstrated that distances and geography are no longer restricting factors. You can target any country anywhere in the world using the satellites. In today's world, the war is high tempo, non contiguous, it's happening at different places. There are concurrent operations which are going on to gain synergy. Then their synchronized ability, number of weapons, missiles, radars, unmanned vehicles, communication networks, aerial assets, logistic and support system. They all need coordination. And one, they have to operate under a single commander, under a singular command. And like I had mentioned, they are spread over vast geographical region. Now, other than satellites, no other entity can be of help to this. When we talk about satellite, what are the various functions which satellite can carry out is the intelligence and surveillance reconnaissance. Warning of the missile, we saw when Iraq had fired number of missiles on Saudi Arabia as well as to Israel, that how many of them were destroyed midair or they were made ineffective. Environment monitoring, we also see weather makes a lot of difference to the way a weapon behaves in atmosphere. So monitoring of the environment, then satellite communications. Now the problem is most of the communication that takes place, it follows the line of sight. Now because of the curvature of the earth, it is seen that the earth curves at 8 inches per mile. So when you're standing, the farthest you can see, assuming that the eyes are at a level of 5 feet, the height of an individual, the farthest you can see is only 3 miles. So to avoid the curvature of the earth and ensure that your electromagnetic waves follow a line of sight, it goes up into the space where a satellite is receiving it, and thereafter it is sending it back, transferring it back to multiple positions on the earth. So that is why the slide where I shown, the number of communication satellites have increased manifold, 53% since January 22, because the entire communications have been revolutionized after the satellite communication has been invented. Now, another very, very important thing is the space-based positioning, navigation, and timing. Now, without this facility, which the satellites give us, there is no precision guided munition which is going on, which is the reason that sitting at USA, you are able to target the camps of Al Qaeda in Afghanistan. Whether it is guidance of the missiles, or it is the timing or finding of the position. Now what happens? The monitoring is done using the ISR. The missiles are launched. It is controlled through again satellites, and damage control is carried out again by the surveillance exercise, surveillance satellites, and thereafter, if there is a requirement of carrying out another strike, yet another strike is carried out. So it's all encompassing. So when we talk about these functions, a very, very basic about what are the type of orbits in which the satellites have been put into the orbit. The first one is the geostationary orbit. Now here, a satellite is launched at a distance of approximately 36,000 kilometers above the Earth. Now, why this? In fact, the exact figure is 35,786 kilometers. Now, why 35,786? It is the place where a satellite needs to go around the Earth at approximately 3 kilometers per second. Now, this is exactly the speed at which the Earth is rotating along its axis. So, in a way, it will seem that the satellite will go along the Earth and continue to focus at one particular place only to carry irrespective of any other condition. So this is important in case of a communication, because you are receiving the signal from down Earth and then putting it back into the area, or for that matter, TV transmission. So these are the geostationary orbits in which the surveillance or the focus remains at one place only on the Earth, because the Earth rotation and the speed at which the satellite is orbiting will be in sync. The next one is called the low Earth orbit. Now, low Earth orbit is anything up to 1000 kilometers. It's called the low Earth orbit. Now, the advantage of this particular satellite is that you can actually put into space lightweight satellites which are not very costly. In fact, of late, there are satellites called CubeSats, which are as big as 10 centimeter, 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter. That is the length, width, and the height.
I would
And
say
they
as
can,
I would say as small as 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter.
okay, 10 by 10 by 10. That's a CubeSats.
Yeah, they're very, very small.
Very, very small. So they are launched, and theoretically, they can be launched at a height of 100 miles, that is 160 kilometers. And they move along the orbit, and they are, because of the lightweight, the gravitational pull between the planetary bodies, in this case Earth and the moon, is balanced in such a way that it doesn't actually need much of a fuel to for it to continue. It just continues based on the gravitational pull of the two planetary bodies.
Mhm.
Now, these small little satellites are moved into low Earth orbits, and they go around the Earth. And in fact, there is now a concept of constellation or arrays of such small bodies. And earlier, what the various satellites had, a individual part is doing it. Now there is a CubeSat which is doing the similar task. The biggest advantage, another very big advantage of this is, this can be, in addition to being low cost, in case there is a malfunctioning of a particular satellite, it can be very easily replaced without much of a cost. So the redundancy is inbuilt.
Mhm.
Sir, you will recall during Doklam, number of these low Earth orbital satellites were launched by China. So
Yeah,
there was large number of satellites. So at any given time, there was at least one satellite about the target area, and
I would
they
I would like to share a information here for the audience, is that because the Chinese had done what you've just said, any movement which we made was immediately spotted by them, and they would come back through the flag meetings to say that you are doing XYZ. And similar was the case with us, because we also later on developed certain
yes,
strategies to cover their areas. So it's what I'm trying to get at is that the world is so the warfare is becoming whiter and whiter. It is becoming more transparent, very
absolutely.
difficult to achieve surprise, etc. So, and the satellites are playing a havoc as far as warfare is concerned.
In fact, just to add, sir, the transparency, in fact, the positive people who are talking about the technology to be used, they said that since the transparency has increased so much, there is a possibility that there may not be war in future, sir. Because you know
Yes,
exactly what the other person is doing. Eventually, you'll know everything
yeah,
about what the other person is saying. So
absolutely,
this low
absolutely.
Earth satellites, they do the, see, if you're closer to the Earth, your speed has to increase. So they are traveling at approximately 7.8 kilometers per second, and it takes them 90 minutes to encircle the Earth once. So total 16th time in a day they can go around the Earth. So this is
Correct.
a tremendous advantage of low Earth orbital satellite. Now, going ahead with the correction, sun synchronized. We've already seen the geosynchronized orbit. Now we see the sun synchronized orbit. Firstly, let me say that this can also be qualified as a low Earth orbital satellite. Now, this is basically doing the rounds from within 20 degrees of the North Pole and moving from northeast to southwest. Correction, northwest to southeast. So they are the
Mm.
one who are moving around the earth, and it takes them 1 day to go around the earth. Now,
Okay.
the only thing is that if we see the diagram which is down below, now if you see the first revolution this satellite has made, it has started somewhere around over India. It has gone around the world, the globe, and then it is coming somewhere in the margin of Africa, Persian Gulf area. Now, while this satellite was going around the Earth has also rotated. So the second orbit it is taking, it is covering almost half of African continent.
Yeah.
And the third, that is third day. Now this is over 3 days. So one orbit is taking 1 day. So it's over 3 days that it is crossed South Africa. Now
Mhm.
to get back to the same area, let's say I'm interested in covering, let's take example of Doklam. I'm interested in covering Doklam. Now this one satellite will come back to Doklam. The time taken is called the revisit period.
Okay.
Now this revisit period varies from 5 to 12 days.
Oh.
So to say that one satellite should be able to do the complete job, it may not be possible. So
Mhm.
you need many more satellites. Now, if we are still sending the older, heavier type of satellites, it was very difficult. It's a very costly affair. And also, the carrying of this satellite into the orbit again costs you a lot of money. Plus, you have to have, you have to have proper place to launch. Like we have Thumba. There is a technical reason why it is Thumba. For sun
Mm.
synchronized satellite, you have to be closer to the equator.
Mhm.
Similarly, French Guiana. So there is has to have geographical reasons for it to launch. But low Earth orbital, very interestingly, low Earth orbital satellite can even be launched. They can put in a transport aircraft like P-17-130 Globemaster, taken up into the air to 10, 12, 13 kilometers, and thereafter, with a parachute, it is left, and then the motors are switched on. So the
Okay.
initial resistance that they are getting in the atmosphere, which is maximum, in fact, if we see how the satellites are launched, they are in the orbit. But when we see the launch on a live TV, they go straight up. The reason for that is because they have to negotiate the atmosphere. In case they follow an orbit, they have to travel much longer in that dense atmosphere. So they follow the shortest route, and moment they get out of the atmosphere, then it is maneuvered and put into a orbit. So now, if the revisit period of a particular satellite is 5 to 12 days, now, like in case of Doklam, you want to do, so you can put nano satellites or micro satellites, which is up to 50 kgs, in a low Earth orbit, thereby getting the coverage almost every day. Now, another very interesting example I'll give you, sir, when we carried out our nuclear tests
Mhm.
at Pokhran,
98.
we were that situational awareness was so much that all the activities were done when no satellite was in the air, in the atmosphere covering that particular area,
Okay.
and every all actions were taken, and thereafter before the next satellite could come, it was obliterated, and there was a sort of curfew which was maintained.
Just a question here. Just a question here to you. You said that we had this situational awareness and we carried out the activities when there was no satellite cover over the
Correct.
area, right?
Correct.
Fine. But given the proliferation of satellites which has taken place now, As you had said, it's gone to about 6,000 something, and the military one there are about 588, civil one 648, large numbers. Do you
Correct.
think there are these dead zones again available, or they have become
There are
absolutely?
no, there are dead zones, sir. I'll tell you, sir. The atmosphere makes a lot of difference, sir. The day there is a clouds,
Mm-hmm.
the cloud coverage, at least the optical access satellites won't be able to pick up. But the counter to it is that you have IR and you have UVs and you have, in fact,
Yeah,
today, in
correct.
addition to this, sir, there the each and every band of the electromagnetic spectrum, there is a payloads.
Mm-hmm.
Like to give you, sir, the if you see tanks standing at a particular place, if they have
Mm-hmm.
done a maneuver and they come back and stand at a particular place, and let's say there's a cloud cover and they decide to do a maneuver during that time, the
Mm-hmm.
IR satellite will pick up the heat of the tank which has traveled. The engine heat will be picked up by the tank, by the
Okay.
satellite.
Okay.
And then when the day is breaking, or when you do the reset, radar satellites and electro-optical satellite, you will be able to see the track of the tanks also from the satellites.
Okay.
So the
Right.
first indication will be the IR that the engines were still hot, because you cannot put that heat, you cannot hide it.
Okay.
And especially if they are in desert or something, and if they are picked up during night, the temperature variation is so much between a metallic or the environment there, that you can very easily pick up. So that's
So
why, sir,
you
today the
so
surveillance is not carried out through one payload, sir. It is a
so as a
combination. Almost every band of the electromagnetic spectrum is exploited.
so as a matter of appreciation, we can assume that China is covering India length and breadth
Not
almost on
yet,
a
sir.
daily.
Not
Not yet.
yet, but yes,
Okay.
sir. What has happened? It's not easy to maintain, because data overload of the data is also not good.
Mm-hmm.
So now they have developed this capacity to launch low Earth orbital satellites. So wherever they find that there is a requirement, like in case of USA, they are
Mm-hmm.
taking 90 minutes for covering a particular area. Within
Okay.
90 minutes, the soldier will get the satellite imagery of that particular place. But
Okay.
yes, USA can do it, but 24/7, 365 days is extremely costly. And the data which it will generate is very difficult to manage.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Now, this is how a satellite imagery looks like. Now, when you have, see, now satellite imagery coverage, I'm talking about the optical imagery,
Right.
which is the human eye can identify. Now, there are three resolutions. Basically, spatial resolution is, let's say there are 2 points. If it is 1 meter, that means on ground, if there are 2 points which are 1 meter away, on the image, they'll merge. So 1 meter point on Earth will look as 1 point. So that's why, if you want a very clear thing, the lower spatial resolution is required. Correction, higher spatial resolution is required. So if you see, if you want a almost continuous coverage, you will get a very low spatial resolution. But if you want a very high, that is onto left of the screen, then what happens is the camera has to go over it repeatedly. In the bargain, some other areas will be neglected. So it is not a video coverage. So that is why the int operators who are into interpreting the satellite imagery, they are aware of the orbit of the satellite, that when is it going to cover which area at what time of the day and on which day. So they decide on a particular target that we want a high resolution image of area so and so. And then they make sure that the camera go over it repeatedly to get it. It's like scanning something. The more number of times you go over it, the resolution would be better. So we get the details from ISRO that which satellite is going, and mostly they are sun synchronized, because what happens is geosynchronized also can take the photographs, But getting it from 36,000 kilometers and getting it within about 500-600 kilometers, there is a difference in the camera output. And then we also get at the same time, the same satellite may have more than one payload. It may have cameras, it may have a IR, it may have a synthetic aperture radar. So all these are combined together, and then the interpretation is done.
Okay.
Now, this is a very interesting slide, sir. Some of you can see it later if you're watching it on a mobile. Now, we used to play this game in the childhood, spot the difference. Now, this is how the manual change detection is done. You have an old image of an area and you get the latest image, and then you carry out an analysis of the two. Now, when these two images were there, and after analysis, the interpreter comes out with that what exactly is it, he gives it marked. If you see all these in green rectangles, I have marked the difference between the two images. Now, this is how the change detection is done. But change detection is an extremely tedious job and a time-consuming job. Now, today, we don't have that much of time to carry out change detection manually. So, using the latest technology, now we have come to artificial intelligence and automatic change detection. The leftmost is an area in Tibet, the image of which was taken approximately 3 years ago. The image which is in the center has been taken approximately 3 to 4 months back. Now, if we are carrying out a change detection, manually, if you carry out the change detection, like I mentioned, it takes time. It can take anything from 18 to 24 hours, counting each and every area. Now, when you put it through artificial intelligence and there are certain codes which are written for this, this will automatically highlight in red color the rightmost image that you see. It will automatically highlight the changes that are there. This will make the job of the interpreter much simpler.
Good.
We go ahead, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now, having understood the basics of space, since we are going to ultimately do a comparison between China and India, now let's see, when did China realize the importance of space war? Like I had mentioned, Desert Storm, Chinese, their own literature says that at the time of Desert Storm, there was 70 satellites of the US which were in the near vicinity of the area of operation. 90% of the strategic intelligence was gathered using satellite imagery, and 70% of the transmitted data was through SATCOM, that is satellite communication exercise satellites. They realized that there is a need for joint operation, single plan, under single commander. But still they were under the impression that space is just supporting and not a leading player. Then came Gulf War. They realized that 140 million square kilometers controlling each and every tank, aircraft carrier, long-range bombing, whether they are in land, air, sea, outer space, cyberspace, electromagnetic space, everything is being controlled by one person. All the inputs are coming, decision support system automatically are throwing up options, and they realize that in case we do not have satellites in functional satellites, we cannot win the war which is going to. And they had realized, because what had happened was now they were growing. They knew the moment economically they start doing well, so their capability and capacity will be tested by the already existing superpower. So they realize that we need to develop space and paralyze disrupting enemy ability to coordinate its forces by operating in space and cyberspace. That is, degrading enemy's ability and safeguard own. Now, all this they realize that by the time we go ahead with our developing our satellite imagery, we must degrade the enemy's ability. That is, they say that US Army cannot function in case their link to the satellites are broken. How did they achieve this? We'll see. Now, Space was seen in such a important aspect now that Chinese included it in historic missions of the PLA. Historic missions, when you mention historic missions of the PLA, this is a mandate passed by the CMC. And they say that we have to operate in space and cyberspace. And again, they're saying degrade enemy's ability and safeguard own. The science of campaigns, which is the Bible for military science in China, spoke about integrated operation where all forces, all domains, and all methods of warfare have to come on one platform, and we have to concentrate forces to obtain key strategic decisions and at critical junctures. Now, talking about degrading enemy's ability, January 2007, Chinese army carried out a direct ascent from the Earth, kinetic kill of a satellite, which was their own weather satellite, which was in a low Earth orbital. So this is called the anti-satellite capability. This was a demonstration of the anti-satellite capability of China. Then, June 2010, two missiles were launched for geographically different areas. One of the two was maneuvered by the space asset, and the other was tracked using the space assets. And then both of them were made to collide. So here they did two things. One is ability to maneuver a ICBM, and also a counter to it, that how to maneuver own anti-missile system to destroy in the exo atmospheric. Now, same year, August, another very interesting thing they did. They carried two Chinese microsatellites were maneuvered into close proximity and bumped into each other. This was named as co-orbital kill. Thereafter, they actually tried it with one of the USA satellites. They went into the orbit of this particular satellite. Now, if they are ahead of the satellite, the target satellite, they either purposely reduce the speed of own satellite. Thereafter, there's a physical collision between the two satellites. Or if they are following, they are trailing a satellite, they increase the speed by opening the boosters, thereafter hitting it. So this is called the crow orbital kill. Then a thought came that why should you target something which is a platform which is in the space? It is time consuming, it is difficult to achieve. So they said, why not target the terrestrial facilities like launch sites, receiving station, disrupt data links, carry out cyber war, corrupt the data. So this is soft kill. So it was a combination of soft and hard kills, which they had. So far about the Chinese concept of what about the space. Now there is a very interesting concept, the Navic map. They are available. We can download it on our own thing. Now see, the GPS that we are using, global positioning system, it's a US system. Firstly, it's not very accurate for military purposes. And the fear is that it can be switched off by the USA at any given time. That is why Indian remote sensing satellite has been developed. It is Navic. The name is Navic. Now, this is the photograph, how exactly it operates. Like I had mentioned, that this GPS has to be geostationary, geosynchronized Earth orbit. It has to be in geosynchronized, geostationary orbit, because it has to concentrate at one place. And like I had mentioned, it has to go around the Earth at the same speed at which the Earth is rotating. Now, as on today, there are 7 satellites which are already in the orbit. Actually, to find a particular position, you need only 3 satellites. But the problem again is what I had explained, the curvature of the Earth. Because of the curvature of the Earth, you may not, the 3 satellites, you may not be in communication with 3 satellites at one particular time. So you have 7 satellites. Compare it with BIDAO, that is the Chinese navigation system. It had started as a continental coverage when they had about 18 odd satellites, and then converted into a global coverage where they have 35 satellites in the orbit. So at any given time, now another advantage with if you have more number of satellites, another advantage is that you can actually have the altitude of what you're saying. If you want a three-dimensional thing, you need more number of satellites for this. So as of now, it is the navigation and positioning. When you want timings and you want the altitude, then you need more satellites to be sent into the orbit. So this is a great achievement because not many countries in the world have it. Uh, you have, like I mentioned, China has Vidoy, uh, GLONASS
Baidu.
is of Russia, Galileo is of European Union, and of course GPS is of USA. So coming on to, I am now summarizing, sir, type of space operations. Space information support operations. When we talk about information support operations in military, now dual use, sir, that you had said. Now
Yeah.
here I am very briefly covering the dual use: recce and surveillance, communication, data relay, navigation and positioning, early warning, missile launch, observation, long range PCM. Now,
Yeah.
if we put it into the civil use, you can monitor the health of the crop, you can predict the weather, water management can be done, disaster can be predicted and mitigated, and underground exploration with respect to what metals you have, where is the oil stored. All this can be carried out using the info support operations of the satellite. And as far as capability for India is concerned, we need to develop our hard and soft kill capacity. We are working on the ASAT and the co-orbital data as per the research that we have done. I have done recently, but I haven't got much of the details of it. But yes, there are things which are already in the pipeline. We have to work on, again, degrading data links of our adversaries, also secure our own data links and work on our cyber threats. Launch facilities are extremely important to protect. And another problem we have, technological challenge we have, that we don't have the receiving stations. We are still depending on foreign countries for our transponders. So we have to develop it in built. A very interesting thing happened is that a lot of people talk about Chinese way of doing it. Recently, I read a very interesting article. I really don't know whether it is true, but it gives us a lot of lessons. That one of the chip being made by the Taiwanese company, there was a bug which was introduced into that chip, which was to be used by a foreign country for carrying out surveillance of a particular area. So that bug was in such a way that at the same time, while it is giving the information to the host country, it will transmit the same to China. So that is why indigenous development is extremely important, because very difficult to check each and every bug, each and everything, or in case you have no choice. But there are scientists have to be very smart to ensure that what they're doing is what they are putting it in the system is absolutely bug free, and there are no issues subsequently. Sir, I think with this I have finished.
Thanks, thanks, Bhatia. I think that was brilliant. You have covered the basics of space-based systems and how both the civil and the military can use it, exploit it, and our audience would be that much better informed. I would like to add certain things here so that you understand the implications also.
Sir.
Firstly, as highlighted by Brigadier Bhatia, the resources in the case of India are limited, especially in the field of coverage of an area. Even in the field of communications, we are on a very very shoestring number of satellites which are there in the up in the sky, up in the space. So for us, partnerships in the short term are very important. If we want the real time information, or if we want our information whenever we require it at a short notice, I think as of now partnerships are important, and therefore the things about quad etc, I2 u2, these things will come in handy. Arrangements with Russia, they will come in handy for us to get that right kind of information at the right point in time. So partnerships is one issue. Second thing which he mentioned was about the space-based system being always considered as a supporting system. Let me tell all of you that in the current era of warfare, the concept of supported and supporting has actually gone for a toss. It's no more, I mean, you can't say that somebody is supporting and the other guy is supported. Every single element of warfare today is assuming greater and greater importance, especially the technological capabilities are in of themselves very important for somebody to succeed in war. So I think it is better that we consider this whole thing as a whole of a system approach, not as a as individualistic approach, and that is why we said that joint warfare is very important now, and hence that theaterization, etc., which is taking place. We need to be careful of that. The next issue which he said was that Chinese are actually way ahead of us in terms of the resources, in terms of assets, in terms of even concepts wise, they are actually testing them on a daily basis. The Chinese have a very good, funny system. No, I won't say funny system, but a smart system. Wrong word to be used, a smart system where they are penetrating your system, testing it, but not using it.
Yes.
Like what they did with the Americans, they got a satellite close to an American satellite. They were now sure that they can bang it and destroy it. So now they have tested this particular system. It would have
And they have
raised some.
demonstrated the capability,
Yeah.
and that's all you
So
need actually.
similarly, what they have done in the case of India, they have penetrated all our port cyber systems. The communication networks of our seaports and the airports, etc. Even the power distribution centers, but they didn't do anything. They just went into our systems and then came out just to give you the message that they have the capability to put it on a hold. Whenever they want, they can freeze our systems. That's very important. We need to actually work hard in this particular area and gain, if not 100%, at least work towards getting about 60 to 70% capabilities in house, आत्मनिर्भर भारत. Because partnership में short term में काम चल सकता है. And the last issue which I wanted to highlight was that NAVIC system जो which Brigadier Bhatia spoke about. We have just deployed the satellites, and it will take some time for us to start using it. Whereas you heard him say that the Chinese have gone global. A global would mean that they are now competing with the GPS. So Baidu is now competing with the GPS. But the disadvantages of Baidu and GPS. See, we can't use Baidu. Neither do the Chinese use it. Neither do the Chinese will allow us to use it, and nor we would like to use that system. The GPS also at times have been tampered to actually make our operations go haywire. It happened in the Kargil. So we need
Kargil,
to be
yes.
careful. We need to be careful that we have our own navigation system, and towards this end, that earlier we deploy this system, it will be in our control. We can then cover this particular area. We are not interested in, हम लोगों को कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है पावर प्रोजेक्शन या दूसरी कंट्री के अंदर इंटरफेयर करने का. सो वी डोंट वांट टू गो ग्लोबल, बट डेफिनेटली वी वांट टू प्रोटेक्ट आवरसेल्व्स. If we want to protect ourselves, we should be capable of beating or dealing with our adversaries. And in this case, we know China and Pakistan, and for that matter, any other maritime force can also come and interfere into us. So we need to be we need to be prepared for threats against us. From that point of view, NAVIC systems is very very important, and we have to keep a close watch on it. And the last was anti-satellite systems. This is the weapon of the future. India has displayed a technology demonstration, but we have to go beyond that. We don't know how much. Like he also said that he tried to find out how much has been the progress. I am sure we'll get to know about it whenever we do the second test. After all, India has the budget constraint, which is a very very major problem. 4 trillion vis-a-vis 19 trillion, so there is a almost difference of five times, almost five times difference in budget. Although the Chinese credit rating has now gone into the negative, and that's a good news for us that
Mhm.
India's ratings continue to rise and soar. And and they're going to basically continue to rise, so which will be a good thing for us. Overall, I think it was a wonderful session, Bhatia. It was. I'm sure our audience will benefit from it as and when they listen to it later on. Also, please like, watch, subscribe to our video. We try to give you very relevant information. It's very easy to talk about current affairs, etc. But it's very difficult to know about your own capabilities, about your enemy's capabilities, adversaries' capabilities, and then come to some kind of a conclusion. हवा में बात करने से कोई फायदा नहीं है. सो हमको रियलिस्टिकली अपनी तैयारियां करनी है, ताकि हम फ्यूचर में लड़ाई जो है एक रियलिस्टिक फ्रेमवर्क से करें. हमें पता है ये हमारी कमजोरी है, उसको दूर करना है. हमें पता है ये हमारी ताकत है. दिस इज आवर स्ट्रेंथ एंड वी मस्ट exploit it. We will take few questions. First is by Shritik Kothari. Uh, he's in fact asked three questions or two questions. So I'll read both of them. This is ask. He is becoming a devil's advocate query. Should we really be investing large sums into space militarization when we have other pressing issues, especially in our traditional domains? Competition will strain our resources. Exactly what I was trying to tell, that we have a budgetary constraint. Your comments on this, Bhatia?
Sir, see, in our case, the good thing is that if we see Chandrayaan or we see our other missions, we are
Hmm.
doing it in a very low budget areas.
Correct.
With very low budget, and innovations are the keys.
Correct.
So I think technology, in case we are able to demonstrate the quality technology, that itself should be enough as of now. But yes, we have to maintain a balance. But it should not happen that when we need it, we may not be able to deliver. Another good thing is there are technological prowess which are there. Now, there are a lot of startups which are coming up in this in a big way. Youngsters are coming up and launching their own satellites. So there is a possibility that there may be some groundbreaking, something coming up, sir. And we should not stop. But yes, we have to ensure that our traditional domains are also, the right amount of funding is done to something which is essential. But this is also has to continue.
Yeah. So, Shritik, I think budget is a reality, and we have to display prudence in undertaking various projects which we are doing as far as they're concerned. I think we should focus on dual use technologies which
Yes.
can be later on capitalized for or exploited for military purposes. His second
Actually,
question.
I'll include. See, sir, when we started with this, no, the Chinese focus and Indian focus was in the beginning very different. See,
Yeah.
China has somehow suffered with the existential threat. They had issues with USA because it was a communist, and then in
Hmm.
1960 they fell off from with the USSR. So they've developed the satellites from the point of view of military.
Yeah.
But in our case, we started developing towards the civil domain more than the military.
And
So it is spin-off of both that we are doing it. If you really look at it, say initially satellites were used for civil purposes,
yeah.
more of a communication, crop management. There was very less military. This was only after Kargil that we have paid attention very seriously. And we are also buying off the shelf. It's not that we are relying only on our own. Like you had mentioned, sir, cooperation, the USA, Canadian, then French, a lot of satellites are with us. And see what happens, sir. कवरेज तो सैटेलाइट पूरा घूमेगा कवरेज तो वर्ल्ड का करेगा वो सो दे आर अवेलेबल इन द ओपन मार्केट
Yeah.
in fact
Yeah.
we can even place we
Open
at
market.
times place order with the open market though they are costlier than our own resources but at the time of need let me assure everyone that we get the imagery what we want
Yeah. Yeah.
and
See,
in
open.
reasonable time frames.
That's what I said. Partnerships are important, and we are getting it.
Yes,
Yeah, Yangtze is one of the cases where we
correct,
actually got
correct,
information
absolutely.
well, well in time. Shritik's next question is related to the fact that you are from the MI, he said. So I would like you to
Yeah.
answer this question. That is, Shritik says, how to leverage space domain vis-a-vis ISR capabilities in context of underground hidden target. He's basically talking of Gada tunnels, PLA underground ammunition dumps. Conversely, how to hide our similar assets from the enemy.
Okay. See, what happens is underground assets when you want to find, so you have to go in a hyperspectral, that is multispectral mode, in the sense that you have to have an optical, electro-optical set image, you have to have an IR image, you have to have, I mean, like, see, very interestingly, when they went to nab Osama bin Laden, the amount of satellite imageries which was carried out using various forms if you read, it's there in the open domain. If you read in detail what all payloads they had gone in, and they actually wanted to know that, they were very surprised that there are no security arrangements for a person like him. So they were trying to find out the security arrangements of Osama bin Laden. So similarly, these underground, it's not difficult to find. See, there is a system called resonating the thing. If there is a tunnel below it, the reflection of the wave which comes back to the satellite is not so strong in case the other way around, because the absorption is going to be more. So there are methods, but only problem is that they are costly, and more than costly, they are time consuming, because if
Yeah.
you get the data, you have to collate it, you have to interpret it, and so everything is possible. Even underground mo dumps is not a problem to find out, but only thing is it takes money. Technology exists, but using that technology is an issue. And how to
Yeah.
hide our own similar assets from the enemy. Similarly, say, many times what happens is we give it away कि चलो अगर करेगा भी तो it will take him a lot of effort. Let his efforts be wasted here, and let's hide our own what is more critical to us. Let him keep on looking for underground dumps somewhere. You send an information or disinformation campaign that let his assets be deployed, because no matter which country is there, after all, the assets are limited.
Yeah. See, it's a cat and mouse game. पहले क्या होता था, जब दिन में लड़ाई होती थी तब भी people used deception, people used some methods to fool the other guy, other side, and try to win the war. It is a similar case here. We know the capabilities. If we know that the adversary doesn't have certain capabilities, like what he just said about resonancy and other, the kind of absorption which takes place in a tunneled area and non-tunneled area, there are so many things which, if the other side doesn't have, use that. If the other side has, then try to do something else. For example, you will find that tunnels in mountains is very difficult to detect,
Yes,
because the concept of like the Chinese have been doing, Vietnamese did it in the against the Chinese. You read the pork chop hill battle. I mean, so much of air assets were used by the Americans. They just couldn't do anything to them. So
especially in mountains, are the re-entrants very difficult to
so
locate.
there are folds in the ground. So it's not
Yes,
that the 100% white हो जाता है environment. There will remain dark areas, there will remain shades of dead ground, shades of places where you can use them effectively for your advantage. So keep it at that. So that is why we should not question, अरे अब हमारे पास तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी थी, हमारे पर अटैक कैसे हो गया, या उसके पास तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी थी, हाउ डिड अमेरिका गेट struck by this kind of or how did Israel get struck in the Gaza war recently. They had everything covered, they had the fence covered, they had the command and control system well knit, integrated, yet they were found napping. So what I'm trying to say is that there are number of factors which go into warfare, and ultimately Admi is the, by Admi I mean the human mind is one of the greatest assets which we have. उसका कोई तोड़ नहीं है, कोई AI भी तोड़ नहीं है उसका. And the last question today we have of Colonel RP Singh. Space is now an emerging battleground. Dominance is force multiplier and space denial. To have supremacy, we need integrated theaters command with space scientists to counter neighbor protect space.
absolutely, sir. The U.S. Army has already gone in for this. They have gone in for an aerospace command. China has their assets in strategic support force. They have put the civilians and the army and the users and everybody into one command. In our case, also, there are plans to have a aerospace command. We already have a defense space agency in Bangalore, which has started functioning. So eventually, yes, it has to come under single commander, like I had given in one of the slides, that all the assets, all the information, all the logistics, movement, everything has to be done jointly. And yes, theater command is the way to go ahead.
Yeah, basically, you see, India has also started making effort towards becoming a space force. We do have a lieutenant general who's looking after the defense aspects within the space,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
and he's doing a great job of it. So we will take some time to actually. That's why I said, no, we are laggards here, and we are trying to make up to our adversaries. But don't be surprised. The Indians come out with the rabbit in the bag. Something they will come
Yes.
out, which will be path breaking, and a lot of innovations are taking place. Youngsters are taking a lot of
No, I'm very,
steps.
very
In fact,
hopeful, sir. While doing research for this topic, I realized that our students
hmm,
in IIT, they are doing tremendous job. In fact, some of our viewers should read these the way they are
correct.
coming up with the satellites and the and drones and
Yeah,
UAVs. These are the
my own
fields which are.
my own uh, my actually Bhanja he's in IIT Kanpur. He's got a patent for nanotechnology,
Yes.
and he's from a village. He was from a village, गांव के स्कूल में पढ़ा हुआ लड़का. Today he is excelling. He could not speak English. He could not actually get good education. Finally, we shifted him to some good place. In what was that good place was Faizabad. From Azamgarh, we shifted him to Faizabad. But from there, he took a leap, went to VIT Vellore, and from there he actually went to Netherlands. I'm just saying that language should not be a barrier. जिस दिन ये barrier इंडिया में खत्म हो जाएगा, उस दिन
Yes.
हमारे जो बंदे हैं ना, इनका दिमाग भाई आर्यभट्ट यहीं का था.
Absolutely.
दिमाग है इनका. हमने जो एंग्लोसाइज किया ना अपने आप को, तो उसमें स्यूडो इंटेलिजेंट लोग आने लग गए. गो टू द रूरल एरिया, पीपल आर ट्रमेंडस नॉलेज यार. ओनली थिंग इज उनका ओरिएंटेशन ही नहीं हुआ उस तरफ. जब उनको सिखाओगे नहीं तो वो करेंगे कैसे? महेंद्र सिंह धोनी कैसे बनेगा अगर उसको आप बाहर नहीं निकालोगे? नहीं तो वो रांची
Absolutely.
में रह गया होता.
Hmm.
रांची में रह गया होता. Good, India is doing good, great job, and I think thank you very much,
Thank you,
Rakesh,
sir.
and I request all the viewers, those who are going to watch later, also please watch, like, subscribe to our channel. We continue to bring you, irrespective of how much of viewership we get. We are bound by our motto to give back the best of knowledge on national security and nation building. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Thank you very much.